Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas. Christmas is over. Fuck you. Yeah, I know, Christmas is over. I initially wanted to do this video on Christmas, but there were 2 book reviews I wanted to get out of the way before I did this video, so unfortunately I'm doing this Christmas-themed video a little late. But this is a movie review, in case you couldn't already tell from the title, and the movie that I want to review is Krampus, or Krampus. I'm not actually sure how to actually pronounce the character's name. I think it's pronounced Krampus, but I've also heard it pronounced Krampus. Now, Krampus is a 2015 Christmas-themed horror comedy film, which was co-written and directed by Michael Dougherty, or Daltrey. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name, but prior to this he also directed the Halloween-themed anthology horror film Trick or Treat, which I'm embarrassed to admit I still have not yet seen, but I've heard nothing but good things about that movie. He's also worked with Bryan Singer a couple of times, and has actually co-written several of Bryan Singer's movies, including Superman Returns and several of the X-Men movies. But more importantly, he's going to be directing the upcoming American Godzilla movie, Godzilla King of Monsters, which is going to be a sequel to the 2014 Gareth Edwards Godzilla film. The movie is also based on a figure from European folklore. Now, according to the old legends of Krampus, Krampus is a malevolent spirit who comes for bad little girls and boys around Christmas time. Now, I honestly find Krampus to be a brilliant movie, and this was one of my top 10 favorite films of 2015. And I also think this is one of the best horror comedies in recent years, because the film really does work as both a comedy and a horror film, because when it's funny, it's really damn funny, but when it's scary, it actually gets really freaking scary and really creepy and really suspenseful, so it really does work as both a comedy and a horror film. And that's sort of an issue that a lot of horror comedies run into, where a lot of the times a horror comedy is really just a horror film with some funny moments in it, or some comedy elements, or it's really more of a comedy with horror elements. You rarely get horror comedies where it truly is an equal balance of both horror and comedy. But there are also moments in this movie that are really touching and really kind of heartbreaking as well. And it's also a great Christmas movie as well, and you get a real feel for the holiday of Christmas in this movie. Even in the parts of this movie that are really horrific, you still get a real feel for the holiday. And this might actually be one of my favorite, if not Christmas movies, then definitely Christmas horror films, and I might even rank this alongside Gremlins, which is my favorite Christmas movie. Now, the plot of Krampus is, it's about this 11 or 12-year-old boy named Max who really loves Christmas, and every Christmas he tries to keep up the Christmas spirit, but the thing is though, his family, with the exception of his grandmother, you could tell really don't give much of a fuck about Christmas. Like, his family really seem to just be going through the motions when it comes to Christmas. Like, they start hanging out with family members they don't want to be hanging out with just because they feel like they have to on Christmas. And they've really lost faith in the true spirit of Christmas, but Max tries to keep the spirit alive. And also Max still believes in Santa Claus, or at the very least, like, it seems like he knows the truth about Santa Claus, but he still sort of believes in Santa Claus as more of a concept rather than an actual person. And what happens is his aunt and uncle and his cousins come over for Christmas, and the thing is though, his family, like the family that he lives with, really hate and despise these family members of theirs, and these guys are pretty much the stereotypical rednecks. And what happens is, after a fight with one of his cousins, Max completely loses faith in the spirit of Christmas. And what happens is, by losing faith in the spirit of Christmas, he invokes the wrath of the demon Krampus, who has now put Max's family into sort of a supernatural limbo, and now he's come for Max's family to take them to hell. And now Max's family members have to put aside their differences to work together to try to survive. And that's the basic plot line of Krampus. Now, as I said before, I really, really loved this movie. Not only is it a great horror comedy, but it's also a great Christmas movie as well, and the movie is also a really good satire on the commercialism of Christmas. Like the opening title sequence of the movie, where you see all those people like rushing into the department store and trampling over each other to get Christmas gifts, was just brilliantly done in my opinion. And the movie is also directed with such a unique energy that I really hope Michael Dougherty, I'm really not sure if I'm saying his last name right, but I really hope the director of this movie uses that same energy for when he directs the upcoming Godzilla movie. And another thing that really works about this movie for me really is the characters. Like, the characters in this movie, they are stereotypes to a certain extent, and that was definitely done on purpose, but you still buy them, you still believe them, and the characters in this movie go through real arcs in this film, and they become more likable as the movie goes on, because in the beginning of the film, a lot of the characters in this movie are genuinely pretty unlikable people, but as the film goes on, these characters really do grow, and you really do find yourself caring about these characters and wanting these characters to get out of this horrible situation. And also, the acting in the movie is great, especially from Conchata Ferrell, I think I'm saying her name right, as Aunt Dorothy. In my opinion, she steals this movie from the rest of the cast. Now, in the movie, you find out that Max's grandmother actually dealt with Krampus before in the past. It turns out that when she was a child, she lost faith in the spirit of Christmas, and Krampus came for her family. And when she's telling this story, you get a little flashback, but the flashback is all done in stop-motion animation with, I think, a little bit of CGI as well, but it's so freaking well done. And the flashback sequence of Max's grandmother as a child is actually genuinely heartbreaking, especially when you consider the fact that this flashback sequence is taking place in Europe, and it's clear this is supposed to be the aftermath of World War II. And honestly, the stop-motion animation sequence in the movie is really what made me truly fall in love with this movie, because it was showing me that yeah, they weren't just making some generic horror comedy film, like they really were trying to go above and beyond for this movie. And the effects in the movie are amazing, and it's a mix between CGI and practical, and the practical effects are really damn good, but even the CGI is actually pretty well done as well. Now, the movie definitely seems to be taking inspiration from other Christmas movies like Home Alone, Gremlins, and Christmas Vacation, but I also saw sort of an influence of, and this isn't a Christmas movie, but I saw sort of a Demonic Toys influence on this movie, because in the movie, some of Krampus's helpers are these possessed toys, and you have a demonic Jack-in-the-Box, a demonic teddy bear, and a killer robot, and when I first saw this movie, I was like, oh my god, those are the demonic toys. Like, it definitely seems like Michael Dougherty is taking some inspiration from the movie Demonic Toys. But yeah, that was my review on Krampus. If you haven't seen this movie, I cannot recommend it enough, and Merry Christmas. Christmas is over. Fuck you!